I think we can start our lecture now. Let me change my screen. We have completed solar energy part 2. Yeah, I haven't forgot. Okay, so today we start with the solar energy part 3, which refer to the solar thermal energy collector. Okay, now this solar thermal energy collector no longer used for the electricity generation. Okay, because nowadays photovoltaics is actually much cheaper and much simpler. Okay, so we use solar photovoltaics most of the time. But in years starting from 1980, this solar thermal collector actually is the mainstream for solar energy, even converted to electricity or use it directly as a heat energy. Okay, but the technology changed too fast. Okay, even Google invest in this solar energy thermal collector previously. Okay, but now they have I think withdraw the investment now. Okay, because they see the brighter future for photovoltaics. Okay, but again, we still need to know about this solar thermal energy collector, especially for use it directly as a heat energy. Okay, so we start from some introduction, and we can categorize this solar thermal energy collector into three types. Okay, solar thermal energy collector is to collect heat by absorbing sunlight. Different from photovoltaics, we collect the light. Okay, but this one we collect the heat. It can be converted into electricity by using a steam turbine. But this is not all type of the solar thermal collector able to convert the heat into the electricity using steam turbine. As you say from here, using the steam turbine, it means that at least the temperature of the or the fluid must able to produce heat. So must be more than 100 degrees Celsius. But as we know that most of the solar thermal collector are not able to produce a temperature up to 100 degrees Celsius. In other words, we are not able to use it to run the steam turbine. But we can use as a domestic heating, maybe for your strawberry hot water. Okay, but the rest we're not able to do that unless we do some modification and or some concentration solar thermal collector. So we can start from the general one, which is the non-concentrating or stationary. This way there without any tracking, without any movement. Okay. So first one is about the solar pond. Maybe you look on the photo first solar pond. This is the pond with a lot of full with the salt water. Okay, you add in the salt into the water until it reaches a certain salinity level. Okay, so that this salt, when you add into the water, the salt will actually interact with the water molecule. Or in the layman term, we say that the salt is dissolved in the water. It mixes with the molecule of the water as shown in the figure at the left side. Okay, you can see here, water molecule is a red and white. Okay, and the red one should be the oxygen, O negative 2. And then this one is hydrogen, positive 1. Okay, and then you can see that the salt that we see mostly will be the sodium chloride, NaCl. Okay, and then this sodium chloride, actually when you dissolve in water, they will split into the iron. Iron for chlorine, which is negative charge, and the iron for sodium, which is the positive charge. And then they will dissolve in the water and will mix together with the water molecule, will hold together. That's why we say that the salt is completely dissolved in water. Okay, but when the salt dissolves in water, the water density will increase. You can see that now per unit volume, the amount of molecule in the water will be more. So it leads to the higher weight. Okay, at the same amount of volume, the weight become higher. So it means that it will become heavier. So we always say that the salt water is higher density than the fresh water. Okay, but a very, very small difference. For example, the seawater have the density of, I think, around 1020 or 1030 kg per meter cube. But for the freshwater, you have around 1000, just plus 2 to 3% density. But this 2 to 3% density will actually separated accordingly to the density by the gravity. That's why it come out with the salinity level. If you see from here, you can see that I add the salt water into the pond or into the pool over here. And what happened to the salt water if you are not going to kacau it? Okay, something like if the seawater is totally different, you are not able to achieve a solar pond concept because the seawater you always have the wave, the water is moving. Okay, so that the salinity level in the sea water is actually quite average or consistent because it keeps moving, the water is moving. Okay, so that the higher salinity level of salt will not actually go down by the gravity. Okay, so for this case, if I have the pond which is stationary, there's no wind, no wave. Okay, so what happened to the salt which is higher density? You can see that the salt with negative and positive blue and green molecule, they will be heavier. So it will move downward by the gravity. Okay, so end of it, at the bottom level, you will have the one layer of the water which have the very high salt concentration, or we call it as a saturated salt water. It's already saturated, cannot be added. It's even what I mean by saturated over here. If saturated, it means that if you add in the salt into the saturated salt water, the salt will never dissolve anymore. It still will remain as a solid. Okay, this one we call it as a saturated salt water. So in other words, to make a solar pond work properly, you need to add the salt into the water until you can create a layer of the saturated salt water at the bottom of the pot. This is the minimum requirement. Okay, after this, at the bottom layer is the saturated salt water, very high concentration of salt. And then second layer, we have the lower concentration. And on the top, even lower concentration. Okay, so it automatically will make it a few layers. Of course, not 3 layers, like it will be many layers. If you look on the figure over here, you have something like this. You can see that the salt salinity will increase until the saturation on the bottom. Okay, it's not layer by layer, but it's actually increase slowly until the maximum value, which it will call as a saturated level. Okay, and this 3 layer will actually act as a insulation. Okay, because now you have 3 layers of the water with different density. So it similarly is actually able to block the heat loss due to the convection, because now you have 3 different medium. And medium at the bottom, okay, that's it here. Medium at the bottom, which is the saturated salt water, are not able to escape to the upper level by the temperature difference. Okay, of course, if you put some force to steal the water, of course, it will move upward. But if you let steadily and only let the heat to move up the salt water from bottom to the second layer, it will be quite difficult because it's heavy, very heavy. Okay, you want to move it upward, then you have not enough energy. So automatically, it will act as an insulator. Okay, so you can see that the heat from the sun will reach the bottom part of the water by the convection. By the radiation. Okay, salt water, we can say that it's quite transparent. Okay, so I would say that 80 to 90% of the sunlight will reach the bottom layer of the salt water and will absorb by the bottom layer. Okay, so it go in by radiation, but how the heat want to come out? This only have 3 methods: convection or conduction. Radiation cannot use anymore because radiation must have the light, so that it can emit the energy by radiation. But now I don't think that you will burn something at the bottom of the water. Okay, so no heat loss due to the radiation, but you will have the heat loss due to the convection and conduction. But now conduction of as long as you have contact with others, you have the conduction. That one we cannot do anything unless you make everything vacuum. So there's no contact, there's no heat loss due to the conduction. But for this case, this is a very low cost solar energy capture, so that we do not able to block the heat loss due to the conduction. But now convection, this will happen because the water will not circulate on the entire pool. The circulation will only in the same area only. Okay, the salt water will move in the same area, and on the second layer, it also will move in the same layer. It will not cross the layer of the different salinity. Okay, so in this case, we can achieve a high temperature at the bottom, which up to 90 degrees Celsius at the bottom part of the pond, and on the top actually it's just normal around 30 degrees. Okay, so this one we can see that it's actually able to trap the heat under the sea, under the pond. Okay, and then for this case, this 90 degree of hot water may not able to use to produce steam, but of course we can use it to maybe for hot water souring, or maybe I can reheat, or maybe add heat to make it produce steam. But now the temperature already reached 90 degrees. Okay, and this technique is not really very effective. You can see they say that the solar energy portion is typically less than 2%. As we know, photovoltaics will give you efficiency of more than 10%, but this one only give you 2%. Okay, but maybe in the some rural area and they do not have access to the photovoltaic technology, so they can use this for the conventional heating. Okay, they can use the pump the cold water into the bottom part of the pond, and then take out hot water. Use a heat exchanger. Okay, because this is salt water, you are not able to use the salt water directly. You need to have the heat exchanger. Okay, so this one we call as the solar pond. But due to the evaporation, you always need to add in the water. You need to control the salt salinity from time to time. Okay, you need to add in the water, and you need to add in the salt to maintain the saturation salt at the bottom layer. Okay, so if we go through here, what else you can see? Anything that I haven't explained? Okay, something like this lah. Okay, so this is the first type of the solar collector, and the most natural type. I would say that most inefficient. Okay, so second type is quite well-known, flat plate collector. This flat plate collector, I think is still quite important because they're used widely as a hot water supply. Okay, so this is main use for residential building where the demand for hot water has a large impact on energy bill. Maybe in some country which are colder. Okay, in Malaysia, what I mean is the hot water will not have too much impact on energy bill or TMB bill because the water itself already near to 30 degrees Celsius, and the souring water maybe just 35 degrees Celsius. You just need to increase the temperature by a few degrees Celsius to produce hot water for souring. But in some cooler climate country, maybe the temperature of the water is about 10 degrees. Okay, then you need to increase the temperature of water from 10 degrees to 35 degrees, which is suitable for your hot water bath. Okay, so this case, you need a lot of energy. As you know that you increase hot water by 1 kg of water by 1 degree Celsius, you need 4,200 joule of energy. Now you need to increase about 20 degrees Celsius of temperature. Okay, so you will use a lot of energy on that. Okay, just look on this. But of course, I think should be quite widely used also, like in Malaysia, for this kind of the flip plate collector. Okay, so we start from the some main component of this flip plate collector. We start grading. Okay, so if you look from here, grading is the first layer, the sunlight, the heat, before it goes through the collector. Grading, or maybe other way you can call it as a cover lah. It made from the cover, made from the glass. Okay, so it's to block the, to protect the collector and to avoid the heat loss due to the convection. So imagine that if I don't have cover, and then the wind will flow through the collector. So when the wind flows, it means that you have the air circulation. It will bring away the heat. Okay, so to avoid this, we need to add in the grading. This concept is very clear if you look it, or very obvious if you look it in your car. I always like to give the example of car. Okay, because you try to imagine that you park your car under the sunlight. Okay, and then you fully close your window. Okay, and then maybe 1 hour later you go into your car. How hot is inside your car? Maybe outside temperature is 30 degrees Celsius, but inside your car can up to 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. If you do not have the proper tinted window lah. Okay, but if same car, same glasses, and then you park it under the car, but now you slightly open the window by maybe 5% or 10%. So what happened? You feel that actually your temperature inside your car is much lower than previously, which is fully closed. Because the hot air cannot come out. Okay, the heat can go in by radiation, but it needs to come out by convection. But now you block all the heat loss due to the convection. Okay, but if you open the window, then totally different case. The heat can circulate. The air can circulate, can bring away the heat. Okay, same thing happened here. We need the grading because we want to avoid the air circulation, which bring away the heat, or we call it heat loss due to the convection. But the grading also have the disadvantage. The grading is the layer of the glass. Yes, we say it's transparent, but how transparent is it? Is that 100% transparent? Is that 100% of the sunlight that pass through the grading? Of course not. Nothing in the world is 100% transparent. Okay, as long as you can see, it's not transparent. Okay, you can see it means that the light can deflect from the glass, so that you can see the object. We see the object because it's reflect light, so we see the object. If something like black body, completely black body, when you light hit on it, you see nothing. That one, okay lah. That's one definitely we see nothing. Okay, but this one definitely you see the glass. You know that it's transparent, but you still see the glass. So it means that it will reflect some of the sunlight. And same thing, if you put the glass under the sunlight for 1 hour, you touch the glass, you feel that the glass is actually hot. So when the glass hot, it means that other than reflect the energy, it also absorbs the heat energy. Okay, so we know that when sunlight hit on one object, part of it will be reflected, part of it will be absorbed, part of it will be transmitted through the glass. So the transmission of the glass will be lesser already if you put in the grading. Okay, because some of them has been reflected, some of the energy has been absorbed by the glass. So the material of the grading is very important. You need to have a very high transparency glass, which allow most of the sunlight to pass through it with minimum absorption and refraction. So in that case, normally they will use the low iron glass, and normally tempered low iron glass. Why tempered? Because it's more strong, higher strength, and then you can use a quite thin glass to make the grading. If you are untempered glass, so to have the same strength, you need a thicker glass. Okay, so we want to make it as thin as possible and as transparent as possible, so that we use low iron glass. Maybe I can show you a photo here. Yeah, this is a regular glass. Optical clarity is about 88%. And on the top here is a low iron glass, which is the optical clarity is about 91%, 91.5. So in other words, the 80.5% will be reflected. Okay. Okay. So is glazing important? Is totally depends on your location or condition of the panel where you put it. For example, as I say, glazing have the advantage and disadvantage. Advantage is it avoid heat loss due to convection, but disadvantage is actually block some of the sunlight and reflect some of the sunlight. So that which effect is greater? Rather, which is more dominant? Frankly speaking, totally depends on the condition. If the surrounding has very strong wind and the surrounding is very cold, then the glass is actually very important. Because you have strong wind, the wind will bring away the heat. Okay, so that the heat loss due to convection will be very nominal. And secondly, if the surrounding temperature is very cold, the heat transfer rate between the panel and the surrounding will be very fast. So heat loss will be very fast. So if you put the glass there, then it definitely help a lot. But in some of the place like desert, let's say no wind and the surrounding very hot, maybe the gradient is not very important. Okay, so but this is just my point of view lah. But as I say, see in most of the solar panel in the market, all of them come with glazing. The reason is because other than the to avoid the heat loss, it still gives the protection to the inner pipe, which transfer the plate. Inner pipe normally made from copper, but as we know, copper is quite soft, so maybe accidentally hit on the copper, or maybe something fall on the copper, then it will bend or it will block the flow of the water. Okay, so other purpose is to protect the tube inside. Okay, copper is quite soft, so that we have to protect it. Okay, so other than glazing, then we have the flow tube. As I say, flow tube is made from copper. And the shape of flow tube is actually quite important as well. We try to increase the total contact area with the sunlight. You see that actually the tube is very narrow. How I want to increase the total contact area with the sunlight? Then I need another layer called absorber plate on the bottom. This absorber plate should be contacted with this flow tube. Okay, so that the heat absorbed by the absorber plate will still transfer to the water inside the flow tube. So it means that I cover all the surface, which I mean that I can absorb all the heat on all the surface in this flat plate collector. Okay, and then as I said that heat transfer rate is totally depends on the total surface area, total contact area. Okay, so how you want to make the heat transfer fastest into the water? So you have to make the surface of the copper pipe thinner and bigger contact area. Maybe I draw a bit. Okay, what I mean is the total area is something like this. Let's say this is the cross-section area of the flow tube, and this they have the cross-section area of 20 mm square. They say but what is the contact area? It depends on the circumference. But what if I make the shape like this? And the total surface area also 20 mm square. I mean the cross-section area. They have the same cross-section area, but now the contact area with the sunlight is much increased. So that the heat transfer rate for this case will be faster. Okay, so this is what I mean. So you need a bigger contact area. But most of the photovoltaic panels, they still use the round shaped pipe. The reason is cost of manufacturing is much cheaper. You want to make other shape, it will be more expensive. Okay, they have an effect, but not very nominal, so that the cost is still the nominal. Okay, other than the flow tube, we still have the absorber plate. Absorber plate must be in black so that it will not reflect sunlight. Okay, the flow tube, yes, it's made from copper, it's not black, but you can make the black coating on it. Okay, and then the absorber plate, same thing. It must have the very high heat transfer rate, which is using copper. Some material which have very good conductivity, thermal conductivity. Okay, and then we attach to the flow tube. And then the next one is the insulator at the bottom. You can see that at the bottom of the absorber plate, you have the insulation layer. Okay, because now absorber plate should be the last layer to absorb the sunlight. So you do not want the sunlight to pass through the absorber plate to reach the ground. And you know that the absorber plate will be quite hot. Okay, so you need to put a layer of the insulation at the bottom to avoid heat loss to the bottom part of the panel. Okay, so we need the insulator. But the insulation, let's say I have the flow tube. Okay, this is the water flow inside, and I put the insulation with the thickness T. Does it mean that when T increase, the insulation increase? Common sense normally the thicker the insulation layer, the insulation effect will be better. Okay, but do you notice that when the thickness increase, this is the total contact area. Contact area increase, correct? Because it will become bigger and bigger cylinder when you increase the thickness of the insulation. Okay, so what happened? The total contact area with the surrounding become bigger and bigger. So the heat transfer rate should be faster and faster, right? Because there's more area contact with the surrounding. So the heat want to escape also easier. Okay, so that what I mean here is thickness doesn't mean that the bigger the thickness, the better the insulation. You must find the optimum point, because the thicker, when the thickness increase, the total contact area will also increase, and it will reduce the insulation. Okay, and how to calculate this? I think mechanical students should know when you study the heat transfer. I don't know in which year you study this. Okay, you will know that how to find the optimum thickness for the insulation. Okay, it would not be as small as possible, but it has the optimum value. Okay, but in XRG, we just learn about very general terms. Insulation cannot be too thick, cannot be too less. Okay, but what is the optimum value? We can just refer to the thermodynamic, okay, or maybe other engineer. As this is just introduction course for renewable energy, just to let you know. Okay, other than that, what else we have on this? And okay, I think similar. We have container free. Okay, container here actually is a tank to store the hot water. Okay, maybe we need a container to store heat water, and we need a container to protect the entire fluid collector. Okay, and then the fluid inside the tube. In Malaysia, mostly we use water. The reason to use water is we can get it everywhere and almost, as we can say, very, very cheap. We can get it easily and it's very cheap. And then water have a very high heat capacity and very low viscosity. Very high heat capacity means that it can absorb a lot of heat. You want to increase the temperature of the water by 1 degree Celsius, you need to supply a lot of energy, so that you don't need to flow too much of fluid inside the pipe, but you also can absorb the maximum of the energy. Okay, something like the container is very big if you use water. And then water, as we know, that it has very low viscosity. Okay, low viscosity will help the water to flow in the pipe without any losses in the pipe. Maybe friction is easy to flow. Okay, so you use less energy to transfer the fluid. But in the cooler climate country, maybe the surrounding temperature can drop below 0 degrees Celsius. Then we can use water, because water will actually freeze inside the tube. Of course, if you damage the tube, and you also will block the tube, the water from flowing. Maybe at night time. Okay, in night time suddenly, in night time you do not have sunlight. Okay, so the water will cool down until degrees Celsius, and then it freeze inside. Happen later, then your pipe will expand. Okay, maybe a connection pipe will break or what. Okay, and also you need time to defreeze the water inside the tube. So in the cooler climate country, they will add in propylene glycol into the water, which act as a antifreeze agent. Okay, propylene glycol actually is a type of alcohol, so they add into it to increase the freezing point, to decrease the freezing point of the water. Okay, so in Malaysia we know it, but remember that when you add in this propylene glycol into the water, or we call it antifreeze agent into the water cannot be used directly. Okay, in Malaysia you can see that we heat up the water in the tube, and then we can directly use the water from a tube for showering, for bath, to use as a hot water. But now you add in the antifreeze agent into the water. You think that you still can use it for normal usage as a hot water? No more. Okay, so it will become a closed system. Okay, if you use the fresh water, then it's an open system. You give in the new water and then heat up and then become hot, then it pump out. But when you add in the other substance into the water, the defreeze agent, like for example, antifreeze agent, then it becomes a closed system. This fluid will not be used, but just in circulation. So the heat will transfer to the water using another heat exchanger. Okay, so you will make the system more complicated. You need the extra heat exchanger. And again, the heat exchanger will not have the efficiency of 100%. So in this case, if you add in the antifreeze agent, it means that the efficiency definitely will drop. But you have no other option, because you need to avoid the water from freezing. Okay, this is propylene. But Malaysia, you not really need this. So it's very important to know what is the minimum temperature you can achieve in that particular location that you want to build the panel. In Malaysia, normally we don't not much care on it. Okay, the temperature difference is very, very small. So the normal water will do, the fresh water will do. This is the advantages and disadvantages of the flat plate collector. The first advantage, cheap and easy to manufacture. No moving part, so of course it's very cheap. Collect both beam and district radiation. So in this case, you do not have any tracking. So it means that whatever heat fall on the panel, then you will absorb. So we will absorb both beam and district radiation. Stationary, so no tracking required. So it will be cheaper and less maintenance. Disadvantage, energy collection limited to area of the collector, because you are not doing concentration. So you're only able to collect the energy that fall on the panel. Absence of tracking lower the value of irradiance on the collector. Generally, lower quality of heat. As long as you cannot achieve 100 degrees Celsius, so we can assume that it's quite low quality, because you are not able to convert to other form of energy, like electricity. Okay, higher material usage per unit heat collected compared to concentrating collector. You need to have a very big collector to collect the same amount of energy as a concentrating collector. Because concentrating, you need a very small collector only, but the rest you can put a mirror lens to focus all the sunlight into one single point. But the actual panel collector is actually quite small in size. Okay. Okay. Next one is called it. Okay. So we go through the two types already, solar pond and flip plate collector. And the next one is the evacuated tube. This one is more advanced, as you read from the title, evacuated tube. So it means that evacuated, you have to convert from liquid and gas, and you have insulation with vacuum. Okay. So in this case, you can see that we have to start from. Okay, we start from the collector. Collector is have the heat pipe inside, and you can see the color is a color for copper lah. We use copper, but mostly we will coat it with a black coating so that it will absorb most of the sunlight. And the same thing as a flip plate collector, at the bottom of the heat pipe, you have the absorber plate. Okay, so none of the heat will go through at the side of the tube to go to the downward. We try to collect as much heat as possible. And then this one we call it as an evacuated tube because we have evacuated all the air inside the tube. Okay, so it means that inside the tube is actually vacuum. Why I want to make it vacuum? To avoid the heat loss. Vacuum is a very, very good insulation because you are not able to have the heat transfer due to the conduction. Conduction, you must contact with the medium. Okay, and you also do not have the heat loss due to convection, where this is the air circulation. You do not have air circulation, you do not have the conduction. But of course, you are not able to make the conduction zero because you need to hold the tube inside the pipe. Okay, whichever you hold, the heat can transfer out to the maybe where you contact with the surrounding. Maybe at the support, okay, you contact with the glass, so it will transfer to the surrounding. Transfer to the surrounding. But now you minimize the heat loss due to conduction. Okay, so this case, because we want to make the tube vacuum, the cost will be much higher compared to the flip plate collector. And same thing, vacuum is not easy to maintain. How you want to make it vacuum? Maybe you can use a rubber to seal it. But this panel is exposed to the sun every day. Okay, and then the UV will actually damage the rubber. It will reduce the elasticity of rubber. So maybe a few years later, then you need to make some maintenance on the rubber. Maybe you have to change the rubber to maintain the vacuum inside the tube. So in other words, this will need more maintenance cost. The manufacturing cost higher, the maintenance cost also higher. So that this one, I don't think we'll use it in Malaysia. Maybe in Cameron Highland or maybe Genting Highland, we may possible to use this where the surrounding temperature is very low, where the flip plate collector not able to give you the enough heat for the hot water. Okay, because the heat loss will be much faster than when you apply it on the hot climate country. Surrounding temperature 10 degrees Celsius, and inside the pipe you need maybe 60 degrees Celsius. So the heat loss will be very fast. Not even the glass can block the heat loss. So we need a vacuum. Okay, so we call it as a evacuated tube. And other than that, the heat, the tube inside, in the normal plate collector, we use the water. Maybe we just add in some antifreeze agent. But for this case, we are not longer to use water. We use alcohol, and mostly we use methanol. Okay, we use alcohol because alcohol have a lower boiling point. Alcohol also have a very good low viscosity, but of course the thermal conductivity, sorry, not the thermal capacity will be lesser than the water, but it's still okay, acceptable. The good thing to use alcohol is to have a low boiling point. Okay, so it means that the sunlight heat on the alcohol, mainly methanol, it will boil the methanol to change it become the gas. Okay, so you can see from the right hand side, this is what vacuum space. Okay, absorber, heat pipe, okay, we explained already. Inside the tube is actually alcohol. Okay, so when the sunlight hit on the alcohol, part of the alcohol will become gas. It will boil. So it will boil, it become a gas. So what happened to the gas? The gas have the much lighter weight or much lesser density. So immediately the gas will move to the top. Okay, so on the top of here, you can add the heat exchanger on this point to capture the heat. Maybe you have cold water to pass through this heat exchanger heat. Okay, so what happens when the cold water touch the gas will condense back to the liquid alcohol. Then condense, you have the higher density, it will go down. Okay. This thing, you are not able to put flat on the ground. You must put with some degree, something like this, some angle, so that the lightweight gases will move up, and the heavyweight methanol liquid, when it's condensed, it can move down. Okay, this is very good in terms of the heat transfer by using they call it as a two-phase liquid vapor fluid or methanol. Okay, so must have an angle so that the lightweight gases will go up and the heavyweight fluid will go down. Because alcohol, I think methanol, their boiling point around 60 plus degrees Celsius. So we should able to achieve by the sunlight alone. Okay, but if you're using water, then 100 degrees Celsius, and water have the higher thermal capacity. So it means that you need to supply more energy to increase 1 degree Celsius temperature. So water, we are not able to boil it, but alcohol, yes, we are able to boil it inside. Okay, so the concept is to boil alcohol, and alcohol becomes fluid, and fluid becomes lightweight. Sorry, it will become gas, and gas becomes lightweight. It will move to the top, and we have a heat exchanger to carry the heat away. And now we have got the hot water. Okay, so this is the entire concept of the evaporator tube. You must have a vacuum tube, and you must use a two-phase liquid vapor fluid. Mostly it's alcohol. Okay, and this heat exchanger, maybe they call it as a copper manifold. Must be copper because you want to increase the heat transfer rate. Of course, copper is not the best. We still have the diamond and the silver, but these two materials are too expensive Okay, so we won't spend too much on it. Then copper, I think, is the most suitable material on that. Okay, then we move. Okay, I can follow. So this vacuum technology for superior heat retention, preferred in colder climate and cloudy region, where the heat loss is much faster than the heat absorption. So we need to maintain the heat. So we need to improve the duration. The heat collection is maximized using a two-phase liquid methanol. Okay. Okay. There's all type of the non-concentrating solar collector. Solar one, flat plate collector, and evaporator tube. Generally, we have these three types only. Okay, the next one we will move to the concentrating collector, where we concentrate all the sunlight into a single area, maybe single point or single line or single surface. So we will use a curved mirror or optical device like lens or what to concentrate the sunlight on the receiver at up to 60 times its normal intensity. So achieve high temperature, which you can have the high thermal efficiency. This means that previously using the flat plate collector, you are not able to boil the water. But using concentrating collector, yes, you can even boil the water up to 1000 degrees Celsius. So it's much more than enough to run the steam turbine. Okay, to decrease the heat loss, because the heat emittance is a function of surface area. Okay, the larger the surface area, the larger the heat loss. So now the size of the collector is much smaller, than the non-concentrating collector. So the heat loss will be lesser. And you also can use a better insulation material, because now you just need to concentrate on a very small area. You can use a better material, okay, better technology. Okay? And mostly it's a solar tracking collector, because you want to concentrate all the sunlight into one single point. If you do not know the direction of the sun, it will be very difficult. Okay, because the refraction angle is totally directly proportional to the incoming angle. Okay, so you must have the solar tracking collector so that you know which point they will concentrate all the sunlight into, or maybe the direction of the refraction. Okay, a concentrator can only focus direct solar radiation because we use tracking, with the result being that their performance is poor on hazy or cloudy day. Cloudy day or hazy day, most of the sunlight is actually diffuse radiation. You can't even see the direct radiation. So in that case, this concentration we have very poor result. Okay, because they do not have the direct sunlight. But for this non-concentrating solar collector, I not really track the direction. Okay, so whichever heat on the surface, I will absorb. But this concentrating collector, the sunlight will hit on mirror, and mirror will reflect the light into the single point. But the problem is now the light hit on the mirror come from different directions. So what happened? It will reflect to different directions, which not on the single point. So you are not able to make the light focus anymore. Okay, so actually you're waste of money in the cloudy day or the hazy location. Okay, let's continue with the first one. Compound parabolic collector. Parabolic refer to the shape, okay, the parabolic shape. And we call it compound because there's a multiple parabolic shape. You can see from here we have two parabolic shapes. Okay, and it can focus the solar energy from multiple directions to common co-focal line, which you have a narrow opening and need or need not track the sun. You can see that if you refer to the figure on the left hand side, the sunlight hit on the surface will somehow refract to the middle point. Not a point now, we can say it's a line. Okay, it should be a very long collector, and then you have a middle line, and the pipe, the fluid will pass through the middle line. So all the heat will reflect to the middle line. But the design, I think, very quite complicated because now you can see that the sunlight comes from different directions, and you want to reflect all the sunlight into the same single point. So how to do that? You need a very narrow opening. First time it cannot hit on the middle, then you reflect for the second time or third time until it hit the middle part. Okay, so the concept is to have a narrow opening so that it will keep reflecting inside this parabolic collector until it reaches the middle point or reach the co-focal line. And this is not very widely used because the efficiency is not too good. It's quite difficult to focus all the sunlight into a single point. We can optimize it, but not very effective. Okay. And we look on the second type. This one is really characterized before. Renewable refractor. You can see that we have the only one parabola or parabolic collector. Okay, and all the sunlight hit on it will reflect to the middle receiver. Same thing, co-focal line. Okay, and then in this co-focal line, you can see that receiver detail. You have a glass cover. Inside can be vacuum, and then you have a receiver tube inside. Because you must make it vacuum because inside the tube will be very hot. The temperature can up to 400 degrees Celsius. And the surrounding, maximum, I think 35 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the heat loss will be very huge. So that we need a glass cover to give a vacuum condition to avoid heat loss from inside. Okay, this is a collector which requires single axis sun tracking, you can see that it's actually moved in one direction, one axis. So single axis sun tracking, normally they will trace from east to west, morning to the evening. Okay, because the change in the north and south, the angle will be quite minimal compared to the east and west. Okay, so this they track the east and west, one direction only. They won't have 300 degrees Celsius, so they don't have 300-degree angle, but only one direction. Every day from east to west, every day from east to west. Okay, and focus solar energy, okay, high performance corrector for high temperature output with good efficiency. As it can reach the temperature of 400 degrees Celsius, then you can produce the superheated steam to run the steam turbine. And then you can focus the sun at 30 to 60 times its normal intensity. And inside the tube, we use a synthetic oil circulate through the pipe. Okay, why we use the synthetic oil? First thing, oil has the higher boiling point. Okay. Second, oil has the higher heat capacity, but oil has the higher viscosity as well. Okay, the disadvantage of oil is the higher viscosity. But I think they use the synthetic oil. The main reason is because 400 degrees Celsius not even able to boil the synthetic oil. I do not want the synthetic oil to boil, because when it boils, it will change to the gases, or it cannot change to gases, it will increase the pressure inside the pipe. So my pipe will explode, or maybe I need to use a better pipe, thicker pipe to protect the fluid inside from expansion. Okay, so we use a synthetic oil. But of course, every manufacturer will use different type of fluid. Some of the company will still want to use water. They say, yes, water will boil at 400 degrees Celsius, but I can use a better material on the receiver tube to avoid it to expand. Then okay also lah, I cannot say it's wrong, but still okay. The good thing is they can use the water directly to run the steam turbine. Okay, you can see that I use water inside the tube. Now the inside the tube is 400 degrees Celsius, but the water not able to change to steam because there's no space for the water to expand. Remember, the water want to change to the gas. First thing, it need to expand. But now it's in a closed area and there's no space for expansion. So the water still remain as the fluid at 400 degrees Celsius, and we call it as the superheated water. Very hot, superheated. But once released to the environment, which the pressure much lower, what happens? It will immediately converted from superheated water to superheated steam. You have suddenly give him the area for expansion. Then it will create a very good pressure to rotate the steam turbine. Okay, so the fluid inside is very subjective, depends on the manufacturer whether they want to use water directly, they want to use synthetic oil. Some of them even use a molten salt. Okay, but molten salt normally for the higher temperature, not for 400 degrees Celsius. Okay, then let's go through it. As I said, this is the real case, commercialized before. This is the first one commercialized. The first commercialized solar thermal collector, this one. Okay. And let's see, look on it. You can see there's only track the direction, one axis only. And then in the middle, there's a pipe. Okay. So this solar energy generating system in Southern California, at this Mojave Desert, use this for their 354 megawatt power plant. Actually, very, very big power plant. And this is actually the first commercial solar plant in the world, which is built in the year 1980s. And according to the company, it say it can power up to 332,000 of homes during the day at the peak power. And it displays 3,800 tons of pollution per year. I mean, pollution here refers to the carbon dioxide. So how they measure this? They compare if all the power produced by this power plant is produced by the oil or gas power plant or fossil fuel power plant. So you will save this amount of the pollution. Okay, and the capacity factor is around 19.2. It's not very good lah, but if you see from here, the capacity factor is still better than the photovoltaic panel. Even the efficiency also better than photovoltaic panel. But the bad thing is the entire technique or entire process is quite complicated, and I would say that it's very expensive. Okay, and this is actually the largest solar power plant until year 2014, starting from 1980. Okay, until 2014 is still the largest. But in year 2014, then come up with another one, also the solar thermal collector, which is bigger than this, larger than this. Okay, but I think it's similar project lah, also solar energy generating system. Okay. Okay, do you know that this system, yes, in daytime, they will generate electricity using solar energy. But in the nighttime, or maybe in the a cloudy day, they will use natural gas to heat up the water because they want to continuously running the power plant. Okay, power plant, steam turbine have a one very big disadvantage. You need to maintain the temperature so that it can achieve the higher temperature. You cannot say, oh, later it cooled out a bit, then later hot a bit. So the temperature keep changing, the efficiency also keep changing. Okay, so they want to make sure that the steam turbine run at the most effective efficiency. Okay, so that even the solar energy not enough, they will heat up the water using the natural gas. According to the company, natural gas provide 25% of the total output. Okay. Powered by natural gas. Yes, we say this is a solar panel, but 25% of the input is come from the natural gas. Just because they want to maintain the efficiency of the system. Okay, not like photovoltaic system. Photovoltaic, you have high solar energy, you get high output. They are low solar energy, you get low output. But the efficiency is almost the same. You not really need to pump up the solar energy input to reach the maximum capacity. We don't need to do that. Okay, this is also one of the disadvantages of solar thermal collector. Okay, then I said this is a renewable energy power plant, but I use a natural gas, which is contribute to 25% of the input. So what do you think is that really clean energy? Am I really displace 3,800 tons of pollution per year? Okay, then some of the researchers complaining or criticize on this project. They say, yes, this project will displace 3,800 tons of pollution per year if they compare with the fossil fuel power plant. But they actually produce more CO2 emission than nuclear power plant. Of course, nuclear power plant produce almost zero emission. So if you compare with the nuclear power plant, then that actually emit quite a lot of the carbon dioxide. Okay, but in my point of view, I think still good, very good idea. You can reduce the dependency on fossil fuels, but as the nuclear plant still have a lot of uncertainty and quite dangerous. Okay, so it's a good idea to do this first project and the larger project until 2040. Okay, this is a completed system complete system for this cylindrical refractor, or we call it as a parabolic form. You can see that first, sunlight hit on the panel reflect all the sunlight into the cofocal light. Okay, and we have the pump the hot water, or maybe you can call it as a hot fluid because some of them use water, some of them you use a synthetic oil or others. Okay, so this hot water at 400 degrees Celsius, the pump to the heat exchanger. if you use water, we don't need heat exchanger anymore. But now, if you use a synthetic oil, we are not able to use the synthetic oil to produce steam to run the steam turbine. Okay, so you need to transfer the heat from the synthetic oil into the water. So we need a heat exchanger. Okay, so once the heat transfer from the synthetic oil into the water, then we let the water to evaporate, not evaporate, to boil and produce steam. Okay, we suddenly release it to the steam turbine. So it will give a very big pressure to push the turbine. Okay, and then turbine will generate the electric steam using the generator. But of course, in case of the cloudy day or at night, then we need additional heating. This additional heating is come from the natural gas, which contribute 25% of the total energy. Okay, so additional heating subjected to the condition, when not enough, then we only produce additional. Okay, once the steam push against the turbine, rotate the turbine, the steam will reach maybe saturated steam, not up to the superheated steam level, but lower level. And then we need to cool down. We need to cool down the steam and let it to condense back to the gases. Sorry, condense back into the liquid form. Okay, that's why we have a cooling tower. But of course, for a small system, we can use a condenser instead of the cooling tower. Okay, so once it's cooled down, then suddenly, I mean that the steam is now very hot, so it's expanding. It's already expanded. So to create the pressure again, first I need to reduce the pressure, which condense back into water using the cooling tower. Okay, and then pump it back to the system, so that it can create the pressure again and again. The pressure will create only when you change the phase from liquid to gases. Okay, so you cannot say the steam is still hot, so I pump in the steam into the heat exchanger again to heat up again. Not that case, because they cannot create the enough pressure already. So you need to release the pressure by changing the gases to the liquid, okay, and then pump the liquid back into the heat exchanger, and then change to gases again. Okay, this must be repeated. But I don't know how we can actually optimize the heat. You can see that cooling tower, we actually remove the heat. Okay, and then here we add in the heat. Okay, but normally the heat removed from cooling tower is very low quality heat, which may be at maybe 60 degrees Celsius or what, which not able to produce heat to the heat exchanger over here. Okay, but maybe you can use it for other purposes, like for example, room heating. Okay, or maybe you use a hot water from a cooling tower for shower. Okay, then okay lah. So maybe if you want to increase the overall efficiency, we can optimize the waste heat from the cooling tower. But for Malaysia, quite difficult lah. Okay, we don't need to heat up the environment. The environment already very hot. Okay, but in cooler climate country, they may use the heat from cooling tower for other purposes. Okay. Okay. I think we take a short break for 5 minutes. Okay, then we'll continue this lens, laser lens. Okay, so see you 5 minutes later. Okay, let's continue with this thinner refractor. It's actually type of lenses. Okay. By the way, can you hear me? Just a quick.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. It's actually a lens. Okay. So you can see that lens have the groove over here. Okay. So the groove will actually change the refraction angle. So each of the groove have a different angle. So we'll make it refract at different angle to the middle of the receiver. Okay, so in other words, they can concentrate all the sunlight into a single point, but not by refracting. You can see that if previously all type of the refractor is actually reflect, okay, but not change the direction of the sunlight by passing through the panel. It's a totally reflected. Okay, but this case lenses is act differently. It change the direction by a little bit. Okay, and to focus all into the one point. And this, as we know that to make the lenses is not cheap, and it, I would say very costly, and you need the sunlight to pass through the lenses. Again, you will reduce some of the energy. Okay, so this is not actually widely used in the solar industry, but it may use in the actually developed for concentrating photovoltaic application, very small system. Okay, you want to focus all the sunlight into one system for experimental purposes. And this groove structure can be easily contaminated when you put it. Because why? You have the shape over here. So this shape will actually hold the dust. Okay, so you need the frequent cleaning. So it will increase the cost. And this lens will be much expensive than the mirror. Okay, this all the reflector is just a mirror. So the manufacturing cost is very cheap, but lens, if you need to make it in glass, will be very expensive. Of course, you don't want to use glass, you can use plastic. Like you can use the plastic in the same shape, then you also can focus all sunlight in one point. But plastic normally will be UV degradable, and plastic will not have good transparency as a glass. Okay, so I don't see any huge commercial solar project using Fraser lens. So just let you know that we also can use this something like concave lens to focus all the sunlight into one point, concave and convex. Okay, so just briefly go through Fraser lens, and then this one parabolic this reflector. This is the best solar thermal collector system. Why is it best? Because they have a highest efficiency. Okay, you use a parabolic disc to concentrate the solar ray to the focal point. Okay, focal point in the middle. So we reflect all the sunlight into the middle point. And I think some of you, if you visited East Campus of TAUC, you should notice that we have one this kind of parabolic disc reflector there. Okay, so but of course they not really use the solar thermal, but they use the photovoltaic. Okay, they use a multi-layer photovoltaic, which very high efficiency. But the concept is the same. They reflect all the sunlight into the receiver, but the receiver can be photovoltaic or solar thermal collector. And you can see that this something like satellite, it will pointed to the solar every time. Okay, so it's actually two-axis solar tracking system. Compared to this, it's not really two axis, it's only one axis. Okay, it's turned in one direction only. But this one, 360 degree. Okay, it will be the most efficient of the collector as they are always pointing toward the sun. Highly efficient as thermal energy absorption and power conversion system. These are modular and thus can function as a standalone system. Modular is you can make a big one, small one, I can move here, move there. Okay, normally maybe in the rural area you also can do like this. The heated liquid drive the steam turbine to generate electricity. This is similar to all type of the steam turbine system. Require the use of the two-axis tracking to align the solar ray to reflect the solar ray to the receiver. Okay, and this is actually the first of this solar collector was installed in California by an Israeli company, Bruce International, in 1984. Okay, same thing, California. You can see that most of the solar thermal collector was built in California. The reason is California is very hot. Most of this area is desert. Okay, I think this one also located at this Mojave Desert. Okay, same thing. Output was 13.8 megawatt. Was because they changed already. Previously was 13.8 when it started to operate. Overall efficiency was 25%. But the problem is the solar thermal collector here, the receiver here, was replaced by photovoltaic system in year 2015. They found that actually photovoltaics have better condition, better efficiency, and lower operating cost. So the blade still operate, but now they change the receiver to photovoltaic system in year 2015. So it means that this one is still in operation, but the concept already changed from solar thermal to photovoltaic. Okay, then you notice that all type of this solar thermal collector was built in year between 1980 to 1990. Okay, any idea why? Why starting from year 1980? Many companies focus on renewable energy. Okay, it's because of the oil price. Okay, maybe we Google a bit. I also don't know how it changed. Maybe this one. Okay, this is the oil price history starting from 1861 to 2009. So, as I said, most of the solar thermal collector was built around 1980. You see what happened to year 1980 around this point. Okay, you can see that the price starting from I think 13 USD per barrel go up to 95 US dollar per barrel. How many times the oil price increased? So when the oil price become expensive, then human will find for the alternate solution. Okay, makes sense, right? Because the oil price increase, of course, I want to get the cheaper resources, so I built something else. And all this type of solar thermal collector was built around that period, between 1980s plus. Okay, but what is the problem? Do you notice on the oil price? What happened after 1980 plus? It dropped back to 20 plus. So what happened? The investor will draw back their investment. Okay, this Bruce International is the pioneer in this solar thermal energy collector. It's a Israeli company. Okay, but in year I can't remember. It should be 1989. The government, of course, it's a U.S. government, draw back the incentive, tax incentive given to the solar energy company, because that time the oil price already dropped. So what happened? Oil price dropped. The government don't need to subsidize the alternate energy anymore, because oil already very cheap. We can use oil already. We don't need to use other type. Okay. So in this case, this Bruce International declared bankruptcy in year 1992. Yes, it's a very pioneer in the solar thermal energy collector, but because this system is too expensive and it cannot compete with the other type of fossil fuels power plant if there is no support from the tax or incentive from the government. Okay, so the Bruce International declared bankruptcy in 1992 because of the oil price dropped a lot, and I think they also compete with the hydropower at that year. Okay, so this solar thermal energy collector got just famous for a few years. Then end of story. Okay, it's actually not replaced by photovoltaics. It is actually replaced by the oil and hydro itself. Okay, that year solar photovoltaics still not famous. Okay, so it's a new technology, but not much future lah. Okay, so the next one is the heuristic fuel corrector, or we call it as a power tower. This one normally is the very big scale power plant. Okay, it collects the light from the high number of plate mirror, or we call it as a heliostat, which spread over the large area at one center point to achieve high temperature. We can use many pieces of mirror to reflect sunlight into the middle point. And what they use here, they can use a molten salt. Inside the receiver here, the temperature can reach up to 1000 degrees Celsius. So they can use salt. Yes, salt is solid in the room temperature, but when temperature up to 1500 degrees Celsius, definitely will be in the liquid form. Okay, so they use a molten, we cannot call liquid salt because it's not very dissolved in water. It's become liquid because okay, so the problem here is, yes, it's a very good idea, but every mirror must have the two-axis tracking system. You want to reflect the sunlight into the receiver, a very big tower in the middle. Okay, so each mirror must have two-axis solar tracking system. And I don't think it's easy because you cannot duplicate, because every mirror located on different location relative to this tower. Okay, so the angle must be slightly different. This first plate and the second plate, the angle must be slightly different. You cannot say every setting is the same. So it means that every mirror have the different setting, and you have more than 1000 pieces of mirror. So actually, it's very expensive system. Okay, so we can see that these they collect solar energy optically and transfer it to a single receiver, thus minimizing the thermal energy transport requirement. They typically achieve concentration ratio of 300 to 1005 and are so highly efficient both in collecting energy and converting it into electricity. They're high efficient because they have very high temperature. They can conveniently store the thermal energy in the molten frame. Okay, they are quite large, generate more than 10 megawatt, and thus benefit from economy of scale. Okay, this is the real photo of the solar power plant, solar power tower. All the small pieces black is not the photovoltaic, it's actually the reflector. They reflect the sunlight into the middle point tower. And look like very small, the mirror. Actually, the mirror is very big, 20 feet times 20 feet. So you imagine that how big is the power plant? One mirror here is 20 feet times 20 feet. Even bigger than your house. No, bigger than your room, not bigger than your house. Okay. So you can see that this also developed in the Mojave Desert in California and start to operate in year 2014. And this consists of 3 solar thermal power plants on the 3,500 acre of land. The name of this power plant called Iwampa Solar Power Facility, which the rated power is 392 megawatt. And the center tower here is cut 295 feet, with 173,000 of heliostat, each 20 feet and 20 feet. You have more than 170,000 pieces of mirror over here, and each mirror is 20 feet and 20 feet. It really means if you want to clean the mirror, how you are going to clean the mirror? The mirror is going to reflect the sunlight into the single point. So in other words, you must make sure that the mirror is clean. Even like to clean the mirror, I don't know how much cost you need just to clean the mill. And you don't expect this always have a rain, to have a self-cleaning effect on that location. This is desert. You don't have rain always like Malaysia. So you need to clean the glass at the old. And they have a lot of the dust. Okay, because they have the sands. And of course, I have a lot of dust. So you have to clean the glass from time to time. And this, as I said, remember that the first one, this is the largest commercial power plant until 2014. And then who actually overtake this, which is the power tower. Okay, so it was completed in year 2014 and become the world's largest solar thermal power station. And costing about 2.2 billion USD. It's very, very expensive. And the capital cost is greater than coal-fired power plant. I mean the capital cost per kilowatt of energy, okay, or per unit of energy. But it's still cheaper than the nuclear power plant. Okay, this system is more expensive than the coal-fired power plant, but cheaper than the nuclear power plant. But of course, when we calculate for the power up, the cost, they will calculate the cost per kilowatt of the capacity. Let's say this one is 392, but we not really consider the capacity factor. And remember that capacity factor for nuclear can up to 90%, but capacity factor of this tower, I think around 20% only. Okay, so it's not really cost effective if compared to the oil power plant, coal-fired power plant, or maybe even nuclear energy power plant. And for this power plant facility, Google is also one of the main investors. Google contribute 168 million to this system. Okay, but in year 2011, okay, this Iwanta solar power facility was completed in year 2014, but the construction start in year 2010. Okay, 2010. Okay, but in year 2011, Google said that I don't want to invest in this facility anymore. Okay, try to imagine that Google invest in the first part, but when it start to have the construction, Google said they don't want to invest anymore because the photovoltaic price dropped dramatically. So Google changed the direction from supporting this solar thermal energy collector to supporting the photovoltaic collector. Okay, but seems like Google made the correct choice. Definitely, photovoltaics is much better right now. Okay, they made a decision on year 2011, but now in this 10 years time, you see how much the photovoltaics price has been declined. Okay. Okay, this is a hydrostatic fuel collector. Complete structure lah. So you can see that the heliostat receives the sunlight and reflect to the boiler. Okay, and the boiler will capture the heat and transfer to the storage or directly use it in the turbine. Okay, but they store it in the heat, so they need a very good insulation, and the fluid inside must have very good thermal capacity as they use the molten salt, much better than the water. Okay, and then the concept at the behind is still the same, turbine, generator, and condenser. Condenser actually is part of the cooling tower. Okay, it's to cool down the steam into the liquid form and then pump back to the system. Okay, this is, we call it as a power tower. So you can see that we have a few types of the solar thermal collector. It's very big scale, much bigger than the photovoltaic system, but end up with not doing well now. Most of them is going near to bankruptcy because the operating cost is too huge. Not able to compete with the fossil fuel, not even able to compete with hydro and photovoltaic panel. Okay, so it means that you generate power, but you are in the your company profit is actually negative. You sell the energy, but the cost you generate the energy is higher than the cost to sell the energy. Because at the time you start, the government still have the subsidized incentive, tax exemption or what. But end up with after 10 years or 20 years, government have draw back their incentive. So that you're not able, this system not able to compete with other systems anymore. Okay, so going to shut down shrink good, I guess, in the future. But definitely, I don't think anyone will build a new solar thermal collector in the near future. I mean, if we are still having the same technology, but maybe one day we have better technology, then other story. So photovoltaic is actually the future of the solar energy nowadays. The working fluid can achieve higher temperature. Okay, this is the advantage of the concentrating collector. The working fluid can achieve higher temperature in the concentrator system than a fluid based system of the same solar energy collector surface. So this means that higher thermodynamic efficiency. With higher temperature, you have the higher thermodynamic efficiency. You can easily convert to other form of energy. We also can say that you have the higher exergy. Okay. It is possible with a concentration system to achieve a thermodynamic match between temperature level and task. The task may be to operate higher temperature device like a steam turbine. The thermal efficiency greater because of the small heat loss error relative to the receiver error. We only have a very small area to take care to insulate. Okay, so the small area, the small heat loss coefficient. Reflecting surface require less material and are structurally simple, just a mirror, resulting in the lower cost per unit area of the solar collecting surface. Okay, but what are the disadvantages? First, you cannot capture the diffuse radiation. Second, you need a solar tracking system, which increase the cost, increase the maintenance. Third, the reflecting surface may lose their reflectance with time and will require periodic cleaning and replenishment. Okay, so not easy lah. You need to maintain 170,000 pieces of mirror, which is 20 feet. Okay, and this is the comparison between different type of solar collector. You can see from here we have non-concentrating solar point, plate, evacuated tube, compound parabolic reflector. So they have a different concentrating ratio. This one not concentration, so equal to 1. And these are the temperature that they can achieve. Okay, you can see that if I compare plate absorber and evacuated tube, the maximum temperature you can achieve for evacuated tube is 110 degrees higher than the plate absorber. Okay, so if you see flat plate collector 350 Kelvin, so if I minus 273, so maybe less than 80 degrees Celsius you can achieve. Okay, but this one can achieve higher than 100 degrees Celsius. Okay, so much better in that case. And let's look on the best one. Best one is heliostat field. You can see the temperature you can achieve around 2,600 degrees Celsius, more than 2,000 degrees Celsius, which heliostat field can achieve. But is that a good idea to achieve this high temperature? Yes, you can get a very high efficiency, but it is safe for the environment, it is safe for the maybe bird. Okay, this heliostat field kill a lot of bird because it reflects sunlight into one single point. And try to imagine that if the bird go through very near to the fried chicken, fried bird, okay, because too hot already, it will become barbecue already. Imagine that the temperature can reach 2,700 degrees Celsius. So of course, the bird will die immediately when they pass through the direction of the sunlight. Okay. And remember that it covers a very 3,000, right? to see the area of the power plant, 3,500 acres of land. So of course there's bird flying through the location and they will be killed immediately. Okay, because of the high temperature, solar beam. Okay, this is a little bit about your lab report lah. I think okay lah. I think I've explained for RME and RMH. I think Ms. Lee has explained to RE as well. Okay, it is how we calculate the efficiency and then how we calculate the energy collector. Okay, and plot the graph to find the heat loss coefficient. Okay, and also the transmittance of the glass and absorptance of the collector. Okay, I think it should be okay lah this thing. No need to repeat this. Okay, any question on this solar thermal collector? We won't put too much effort on this chapter. Just for instruction, you need to know the history lah. And actually, a few of them still in operation, so we cannot say that this technology is not needed anymore. Okay, so we need to give some instruction, but not main focus on this. Okay, any question on this chapter? If you want to do calculation on this chapter, it's mostly on the thermodynamic, how it convert the heat, how the heat transfer. But I don't think we need to go until that extent. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's have a look on this Iwanta solar power facility. Yeah. Wait a minute. Just a few minute video, have a look for your better understanding on this power plant. Okay, do you notice that there is a lot of spacing between the glass? Sorry, between the mirror. So if I use this area to build a photovoltaic power plant, you should get the better power output. Okay, because photovoltaic solar panel almost able to cover the entire surface, but not like this. You can see that there's a lot of spacing between the mirror. There's quite a big space between them. Okay, so in terms of space usage, I think photovoltaic panel is still much better than this Iwata solar power facility. Okay, the only advantage of this solar thermal system is they have the better efficiency than photovoltaic system, but its efficiency is the main criteria that you think of. We need to consider the cost. Okay, how it's effect to the environment. Okay, the efficiency is not really a problem because the energy from the solar is actually free. So when the energy is free, as long as I can capture as many as possible, the efficiency low, not much effect. Okay, but for oil, gas, power plant, efficiency is very matter because it will increase the cost because you need to use more energy. Okay, you need to pay for the energy, different story. So efficiency will be very important. Okay, I think good enough to know until this point. Okay, so the bird is actually attracted by the insect. Insect attracted by the light, and then bird attracted by the insect, and both are killed by the light beam. Okay. Okay. Any other question on this? If no question, then I think we have 10 minutes left. I think we don't need to start on another chapter lah. So for the next classes, we will continue with the last part of solar energy, which is the photovoltaic panel, photovoltaic system, and that will introduce to you how we actually calculate the system efficiency and how to we design for the entire system. Okay, so we will touch it on next classes. Okay, if no more question, then I think we can dismiss now. Okay, thank you for your time and see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.